Hey guys, in this sewing tutorial, I'm going to show you another handkerchief skirt style. This one is a little bit more unique. It's called a double circle handkerchief skirt with 8 points. I'm going to show you how to draft it and sew it. You guys ready? Let's get into this. The first thing I'm going to do is trace my skirt blocks. This block was draped and then I did a fitting to make sure it fits good. And now it's a block pattern. Let's start with the front block. Take your pattern and put it on another piece of paper. You're going to close the dart, so trace it up to here and stop. From the dart point, you're going to shift the dart leg over here to close the dart. Then continue tracing the paper all the way around to the hip line, like this. If this is not curved right, you can always correct it like this. For the yoke design, I will measure down from the center front 5 inches. And from the top of the side seam, I will measure down 5 inches and mark it. You can either curve this or you can measure down 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches, and then curve it. After that, put your seam allowance all around like this. This is how the front looks. Next is the back block pattern. First, put a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the center back for the zipper. Then trace and stop right here. Then shift the other dart leg to this mark to close the dart. Then trace all around and stop at the hip line. For the yoke design, use the same amount you used for the front yoke. I'm going to put 5 inches for the center back. And for the side seam, I put 5 inches. Then curve it and put your seam allowance all around. And this is how the back looks. After that, measure the bottom of the yoke so we can find out the radius for the circle skirts. For my front yoke, I have 10.5. And for my back yoke, I have 10 inches. Next up is the formula to make the skirt. The formula will be the bottom of the front measurement plus the bottom of the back measurement times 2, which is for the other side of the front and the other side of the back. Then add 2 inches for the seam allowance and then divide that by 12.56. So my measurement will be 10.5 plus 10 times 2 plus 2 inches divided by 12.56. And my total is 3 7/16. I'm going to round it off to 3.5. Remember, the formula for a full circle skirt is 6.28 and 12.56 is for a double circle skirt. A double circle skirt is a 720-degree circle skirt. This skirt will have a high waistband. It's 1.5 wide. I drafted a straight waistband. Here is the front and the back. When I put it on my dress form to do a fitting, I noticed there was a little gap on the top. So I pinned it and corrected the pattern. The waistband is now a curved waistband. Now let's start with the skirt pattern. My measurement is 3.5. So from the corner, I'm going to measure down and mark 3.5. all the way around. Then after that, I will put a 1/2 inch seam allowance like this. Next is the length of the skirt. For this design, it looks better if it's a short skirt. So we have to find out the length we want over here and over here before the pointy hem, because the pointy hem is going to be the final measurement for the skirt. So you don't want this to be too long. I want my length to be 16 inches, so I will measure from here to here and subtract it by 16, and I have 11 inches. So for me, it will be 11 inches here and 11 inches over here. After you mark your measurement, make a square box like this. Now let me show you how to make the bottom flare hem. First, mark 2 3/4 on this line. Then on this line, mark 2 3/4. On this corner, make a straight line. On my ruler, I have a 45-degree line here and here. So I'm going to put it right here on that 45-degree angle and draw a straight line. From this corner, measure down and mark 4 inches. Then curve it with your ruler. Try to use the same number you used on the other side, so it has the same curve. I used the number 28 on the ruler. This is one way to make the point, but I wanted to make it look like a fiery flame. So from this corner, measure down and mark 3 1/4. From this line, measure out 3/8. And then from here, measure out 3/8. Then erase the 2 lines and curve it again like this. Next, we're going to make the pointy part. For this part, I'm not going to use the curved ruler because it's not going to connect correctly. And I don't want to use the straight ruler because it won't connect correctly with the curve on top. So I'm going to freehand this line. From this line, measure down 1 3/4 and mark a line. And then freehand the lines till you are comfortable with the pointy part. I had to redo this a couple of times before I liked it, but I'm happy with the final result. We made 2 full circle skirts, so this is going to be unfold, and this is going to be unfold. I'm going to put paper on the other side because I'm not sure how I want to cut this. This skirt will have no seam allowance. This is a quarter of the full circle skirt, and this is a quarter of the skirt. I'm going to put this on a quarter skirt like this. The other side of this is for the other side of the front yoke, and that will be one of the full circle skirts. Then you're going to do the same thing for the back skirt, for the other full circle skirt, and that's the double circle skirts we made. Let me explain it to you with a little mini. This right here is for this side. When I open this up, this is the other side for the other side of the front yoke. This is a full circle skirt. It's a 360 circle skirt. We made 2 of these. So 360 times 2 is a 720 circle skirt. The formula for full circle skirt is 6.28. And for a 720 circle skirt, that's 2 full circle skirts. The formula for this is 12.56. That's what we did today. Remember, 6.28 times 2 equals 12.56. So we made 2 of these, one for the front and one for the back. This will be unfold, so I'm going to write the pattern instructions. Here are the pattern pieces. For this project, I'll be using 100% cotton African print fabric and a zipper. I will also be using a cotton woven interfacing, only for the shell waistband. I decided not to use the interfacing on the shell yoke. This is the selvage. It's selvage to selvage, and it's on fold. I'm going to fold it like this and put the pattern on top and cut 2 of these, one for the front and one for the back. There is no seam allowance on the hem of this circle skirt because this pointy part is designed with a curve. It's not a straight point, and if you put seam allowance on a curved seam to lay flat, it won't look right because you will have to clip all around the curve, and it won't look right with all the cuts on the seam allowance. So for this design, you can use a baby lock serger and make a narrow overlock stitch, or you can use any other serger. I used my Singer Professional 5 serger, and I sewed a 4-thread overlock stitch because I didn't change my setting on my serger to make a 2 or 3 thread overlock stitch. Those stitches look smaller and better than the 4-thread overlock stitch I used. I just wasn't trying to change the setting because it was late at night and I didn't want to go through that. But check your serger because it probably can make a narrow overlock stitch, which will look smaller. For the bottom of the point, I made a long chain stitch so I can undo the chain and tie all the strings together to make a knot and cut the rest off. So here is the front full circle skirt. Cut one side for the side seam. And this is the back full circle skirt. Cut one side for the side seam and the other side for the zipper. First, sew the yoke and the circle skirt together. I sewed a top stitch here, and I was not supposed to. This is what happens when you're sewing late at night and you know you should be sleeping. Have you ever been through this? When it's late at night and you're trying to rush the project and you start making mistakes? What's the one project that you messed up on that you wanted to cry? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your stories. I know you got some stories. Let me know. If you're still here, give this video a like so I know you've been through it too. Later on, I will take the stitch out and sew it after I sew the facing. Next, sew the waistband to the yoke, and then sew the top stitch on the bottom of the waistband. Then sew the facing pieces together. After that, I did a hand basting stitch on top of the zipper. As you can see, I'm using a number 3 zipper, which has a smaller tape. That's because I ran out of my number 5 black zippers, which has a 1/2 inch zipper tape. So I had to move the zipper over 1/4 so it can be on top of the 1/2 inch seam allowance. This pink is a number 3 and the blue is either a number 4 or number 5. After I sewed the zipper, that's when I realized I wasn't supposed to sew the top stitch on the bottom of the yoke. I was supposed to sew it after I fold over the seam allowance on the bottom of the facing. So I had to unstitch the top stitch all around. Then I put the facing on top of the skirt right side to right side and sewed it all the way around on top. After that, I turned the facing inside the skirt and sewed a understitch on top. Then I turned the seam allowance on the bottom of the facing inside and sewed the top stitch on the bottom of the yoke. This is how it looks inside. This is the understitch on top of the skirt, and this is the top stitch on the bottom of the yoke. And here is the final look, guys. I love how it looks on the bottom of the skirt. It's different and I love it. If you enjoyed this video, then please give this video a like so more creators can learn how to make this unique double handkerchief circle skirt. Here is another handkerchief skirt I made. If you would like to see the video, you can check it out here. Click or tap on the screen right here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to practice, practice, practice. Bye, everybody.